All right, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for Atlanta Inno State of Innovation today, centered around the future of retail. I'm Erin Schilling, the staff reporter at Atlanta Inno, sister site to the Atlanta Business Chronicle, and it's been a while since we've done one of these events, so I'm excited for everyone to be here. If you don't know, Atlanta Inno is part of a growing network of Inno sites. We're currently in more than 40 markets, with more coming soon. We're committed to covering local technology, startups, their growth, and the innovation behind them. We appreciate you guys following Inno. And if you're interested in founders, startups, tech in other cities other than Atlanta, you can find those on our site. And as always, make sure you guys are getting the Beat email newsletter. The Beat is the best way to stay plugged into everything that's impacting the local economy, the local innovation economy. In it, you'll get the tech and startup news that you need, analysis you won't find anywhere else, info on upcoming events, and cool job postings, all in sort of a fun, conversational manner. So sometimes you'll also get updates on my garden, but I mostly stick to tech news. Before we get going with our panel and startup pitches, I'd like to thank our presenting sponsor today, Accenture, who is proud to support local innovators, startups, and businesses on their digital transformation journeys. Please take a moment to check them out. They support innovation, local founders, startups, tech, and more, and they would love to get to know you guys. Before we get into the future of retail panel, we have 3 retail solution startups here today that we'd like you to meet. We're keeping our eyes on them, so we think you guys should be too. So to get started, we first have Vic Kamat. He is the co-founder of Patron Technology, and I will hand it over to him so he can tell you a little bit about his startup.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to present Patron. I'm Vic Kamat. Name of the company is Patron Technologies. We are here in Atlanta, and what we do is know your customer's business. We are like a Google Analytics for physical retail stores. And the best way I can describe is take an example of what, if you are an e-commerce merchant, the kind of analytics that you get from for online is what you are trying to provide to the retail. Here's an example I pulled out. If you are on an e-commerce website, they probably know what you searched in Google to come there, what influencer may have prompted this visit. And if you are a login, they probably know my age, my demographics, my gender, my income bracket, and all these things. This type of analytics are not available to a physical store.
Account customer number is 0418474185.
And we collect this data based on what happens outside the store. We study traffic,
and then 4.
Study the cell phone data signals from the satellite, and we fuse the data with what happens inside the store. We marry with inventory and customer data to produce analytics for the merchant. So here's an example I pulled out for an outlet store. And we're able to tell that of this store, about 12% of the people stopped at a competing store, and 10% went back to another store. So we hope that this type of analytics is useful to a physical merchant. Another good example I can give you is a bridal store here in Atlanta. They realized by using our platform, 70% of their customers actually came out of state from Alabama. They drove 70 miles to come there. So by studying this type of analytics, they're able to decide where to spend their advertising dollars and improve the product mix. Thank you. Name of the company is Patron. And we do 2 things for retailers. We provide curated data for data scientists. And for small merchants, who don't have a data scientist on staff, we make it very affordable at $100, under $100 a month. We provide prefabricated data science reports. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vic. Next up, we have Carl Swenson, the co-founder with PollLogic.
Thanks, Erin. Can you hear me? And I'm sure my screen, can you see that?
Yes.
Thanks. So thanks, Aaron. I have a question for the audience. What if you could increase sales up to 30% with no increase of inventory or salespeople? Would you do it? Of course you would. Let me tell you more. The problem we see all the time with companies selling and manufacturing products of high value is they have difficulties providing exactly what customers are seeking and being in stock at the right location. It's just not feasible to have every possible combination in stock of what a customer might purchase, every size, color, feature, the list goes on. I'm talking about high value items like automobiles, bikes, electronics, apparel, shoes, basically anything over $100. It's especially true today. We hear about in the news constantly about supply chain constraints causing all sorts of issues of retailers and manufacturers not being in stock, shortage of truck drivers, port capacity, you name it. So what happens is customers end up either one, not buying anything, and that results in a lost sale, or two, they settle for something that's not exactly what they want. Our solution solves both problems. PullLogic is based on the life research of Dr. Benoit Montreux. He leads the Supply Chain and Logistics Institute at Georgia Tech. He's worked his entire career solving problems in product availability and customer preferences. We introduced a new metric for measuring product availability and supply chain readiness. We call it PAR, or product availability ratio. This metric is much better than we typically see today in terms of in-stock rates of a given SKU, which is simplistic. It really doesn't account for all the dimensions that customers factor in their minds when they're making trade-offs of what features, functions, and what time frames. PAR is a simple to use metrics based on complex algorithms and probabilities, and it considers multiple components, including customer preferences, willingness to wait, substitution logic, and other things. PAR can be measured at all places in the supply chain, including retail outlets, distribution centers, e-fulfillment centers. And additionally, we use machine learning algorithms to learn and improve PAR over time for a company. So PullLogic has developed a platform. It's provided as software as a service. On the left side of this slide, you can see our modules that work with the back end of a company. The first is the PAR dashboard, and it has a module that calculates PAR daily throughout a company. The second is our availability optimizer, where we can adjust inventory throughout a company's supply chain. Essentially, our goal is to improve PAR, the product availability ratio, and then result in higher sales conversion of being in stock what people want. And this integrates simply and easily with existing transactional systems and inventory systems. On the right side of the slide, we work with the front end of a company. It's a Smartest Sales Assist app. This can be used by salespeople, customers, and e-commerce websites where they can choose what features, functions they want, and how long they're willing to wait. With this, we provide acceptable substitutes in the time frame people want products, so we can save the sale. I recently went through this at an appliance store. It took me 45 minutes to search through our inventory, what was in stock, what was available. It was a painful process. We could do that in minutes. So this tool will be invaluable to salespeople to increase their sales, extend knowledge of what's available when. So this PAR approach has already been implemented, has achieved a 30% sales lift, again, with no increase of inventory or salespeople. Let me repeat that, a 30% sales lift. So the bottom line is that we reduce sales to customers due to supply chain issues, and this results in happier customers and higher profits. If you want to learn more, please contact me, Carl Swenson. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Carl. And last but not least, we have Sid Lunawat, co-founder of Hammock.
Hey everyone, my name is Sid Lunawat. I'm a co-founder of Hammock. We enabled e-commerce return and use goods. One of our investors is based out of Atlanta. They're called Silicon Road. So essentially what we do is, the problem we're trying to solve is that reselling returns is hard, right? You have to, when something is returned at a store or for a brand, you have to inspect the product, you have to restock, you have to relist it. It's a lot of logistics on the back end. And then bulk selling provides minimal returns, right? So as an example, if you buy products and if you liquidate products that have been returned, you don't really get much out of it. And then you could also devalue your brand. So what Hammock does is maximize revenue, make it easy for companies to resell used and return products online. And you can do multiple versions of this, which is what I'm going to show you in a second. So for retailers and brands, our solution, as an example, you can have two types. There's a re-commerce enablement, which you can list to own or third-party websites. So as an example, if a company like, let's say, Home Depot, and you want to do resale of products that have been returned to you, we are able to stand up your own third-party site, stand up your own site for you. It can be white labeled. It can kind of look like a Home Depot site. It can look like another site. If you don't want to do that, we also have an end-to-end offering where we can actually push products through online e-commerce and through local e-commerce. And what I mean by that is, if you want to sell something, let's say on eBay, and let's a small product that can ship, you can push it through eBay. If you want to just sell it locally in Atlanta, we can push it through Facebook Marketplace. And it does not actually go online and doesn't compete with their e-commerce site. Now, we have the ability to push products on 50 plus sites. What's even more powerful though is how we handle everything on the back end. One thing I'll add in here is, as a seller, as a brand, you can have an instant buy or wait till the product sells. So we can give you money up front for something you try and sell, or you can wait till the product sells online and get more for it, but then it's a delayed payment. So example in action, one of our customers, Koyo, they have retail sales. And so what they do is they have retail sales in e-commerce. So their e-commerce returns and in-stores all go to Hammock. And then we push out to eBay, Mercari, and Poshmark for them. And it's a simple thing. It sells for $250 MSRP. We can sell for $140 with Hammock. Their liquidation right now is $25. So there's a $115 uplift for when they use Hammock. Now, just dive into this use case a little, the e-commerce and in-store returns. So what happens is when an e-commerce return happens, it actually gets sent to a Hammock reseller. On the back end, we have a network of 2,000 plus resellers. And so it gets sent to them. If like in the store version, one of our resellers will actually just go to the store and pick it up from there. So the advantage is that Koyo doesn't have to do anything physically. It just literally, like, the return label is sent to us, or the pickup is done by us. They don't have to worry about anything. And we just sell it online for them. What's really powerful about our system is our tech, right? We have identification of product details and resale price. So all you need to do is snap 2 to 3 photos and Hammock will do the rest. That's if you want to do it yourself. Otherwise, our system does it for you. Our team of resellers do it for you. Lastly, on the B2B marketplace side, there's connecting to a right buyer. Essentially, is getting a product out in front of the right person, right? It's the more places you have, the more the targeted you are. If you're selling something specific, get in front of the right audience and you'll get the highest price for it. That's what we do. And what's great about our tech is that we actually, through an image, are able to create attributes of a product and list it online automatically. So this is still done manually today if you want to list something, but we do it automatically. You take a photo of a product, it just gets listed online. Our customers include brands, liquidators, resellers, and nonprofits. Also includes retailers, pawn and re-commerce companies. We're essentially have a wedge of technology that fits all these types of entities. And if you want to learn more about Hammock, visit us online, or you can email me, sid@hammock.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sid, and to all the founders who presented. I love hearing about all of the different innovation that's always happening in the Atlanta innovation economy. You guys are awesome. So now we'll jump over to our Future of Retail panel, where we'll be speaking with experts and founders about the retail industry and changes in consumer behavior. Plus, we'll hear about how businesses are staying adaptive, responding to major trends, and transforming the supply chain. I know this is sort of a top of mind discussion as everyone gears up for holiday shopping. As a reminder to our audience, you guys are all on mute, but if you have questions for the panel, please drop them into the questions box and we'll address those during or after the discussion. And don't forget to keep using the chat box. And now I will hand my virtual microphone over to Sid Mukherjee, the founder and managing partner at Silicon Road, who will be our moderator today.
Thank you, Aaron. And wow, I mean, great job with Patron, PullLogic, and Hammock. What great innovation over there. And I think that sets up the stage beautifully for our panel, which is a very impressive one. We have Fahim Siddiqui, SVP Information Technology at Home Depot, Barbara Jones-Brown, founder and CEO of Lily R&B and Freeing Returns, Bogdan Constantin, CEO of Voxy, and finally Tiffany Gilbert, who is the Atlanta Innovation Hub Director and Managing Partner for Accenture. Very quickly about me, for the audience, as Erin said, I'm founder and managing partner of Silicon Road Ventures. We are a $31 million fund investing in early stage startups, which are focused on retail tech and e-commerce tech, technologies which are disrupting retail, e-com, and CPG industries. We have made investments into 16 startups so far and have made 6 follow-on investments, some of them doing very well. Other than that, I also run a foundation, a family foundation called the Mukherjee Foundation, focused on entrepreneurship, as well as social causes. So we stood up the retail tech vertical at ATDC, Georgia Tech's incubator. We also launched what is called the Mukherjee Innovation Fund for a gift to Kennesaw State University. And finally, through the foundation, I'm also the founding partner of the Creative Destruction Labs, the Atlanta chapter, which focus on the commerce stream. Lots of other things. I'm also, we have a family office, etc. But relevant to this conversation is my focus and passion on entrepreneurship and on the city of Atlanta. So go Braves, and looking forward to having a great discussion today. Thank you for being here. So I'll first ask Fahim Siddiqui to quickly provide an introduction, please.
Hi, I'm Fahim Siddiqui with the Home Depot, and I'm responsible here for software development for our e-commerce, supply chain, merchandising, and data and analytics platforms. And I've been now with the company for 3 years, and really my passion in life has been around technology, and half of my career I spent as an entrepreneur, and half of my career has been with the larger companies. So excited to see and hear from the entrepreneurs today, and look forward to a dialogue.
Thank you, Fahim. Can you go next, please, Barbara?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Jones, founder and CEO of Lily R&B Inc. And our product, Freeing Returns, is helping retailers save time and money on system integration costs for returns management applications. So I love what Hammock is doing. Reverse logistics is definitely an issue for retailers, and I think they have a really good solution. We also provide solutions for detecting fraud, organized retail crime rings, and just getting analytics around what's going on with their returns and refund management. So happy to be here today and ready to hear this conversation.
Thank you, Barbara. Bogdan?
Hey everyone, Bogdan Constantine, founder and CEO of Voxy. We're the leading conversational text and automation platform. So we work with retail brands, whether they're e-commerce or physical retail brands, or both, helping them better connect with their customers through two-way text powered by AI, a variety of use cases from sales and marketing, where we become a top 3 revenue stream, all the way through engaging their employees, customer bases, to actually hiring. So really entrenched in the retail world. Before this, I started a direct-to-consumer business that I sold to the Men's Wearhouse Holding Company. I spent about 1.5 years there as the CMO. Very passionate about helping brands connect with their customers and then use those connections to grow, which is what Voxy does for brands like Edible Arrangements, Mars, Dannon, Unilever, but also folks like Verizon, but also mid-market brands where we work with usually the fastest growing e-com and retail brands in the United States. So thrilled to be here. And just to echo Sid's topics, huge Atlanta fan, came back home after a number of years away to build here. So go Braves. And I think we're having a heck of a year for Atlanta sports. So also go Hawks and go Dogs.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bogdan. And last, but certainly not the least, because this event would not have been possible without her partnership and Accenture's partnership, Tiffany.
Great, thank you. And go Atlanta United too, while we're listing off the Atlanta teams. We've got a game match tonight. Hi, everybody. Tiffany Gilbert. I am a managing director at Accenture, and I am currently the Atlanta Innovation Hub Director, which that means that I get to spend all of my time working with organizations and companies here in Atlanta to think about ways to change the way that the world is disrupting their business. And come up with new and innovative ideas. And so Accenture itself has done a lot of research and surveys on what's going on with consumers, thinking about the trends that are happening in retail. And we can talk to you about all sorts of things related to the data, the analytics, the rethinking of your workforce and your talent, the supply chain, everything that really kind of is truly impacting retailers today is at the heart of what Accenture does. So happy to be here, and we partner with a lot of startups and other innovative companies as well. So it's not just Accenture, but we're together in partnership with a lot of other people on this call. So thanks, Sid.
Thank you, Tiffany. And actually, she is modest. I will brag for their fabulous location in Tech Square. It's state of the art, and oh my God. Anyway, so thank you for everything you're doing for Atlanta. I really mean that. So, let's jump into the discussion. 2020 and 2021 have been, what's the right word? Crazy, probably, for everybody, especially retail, right? We thought that the world is going to end, and then 2020 and 2021, retail is doing better than ever before, right? If you look at the graphs, there is clear daylight between 2021 sales numbers and everything else. And I'm sure Fahim is going to spend a few minutes talking about that. But there are also challenges, and not everybody is succeeding in this environment. So challenges, which are, of course, we know about inflation, we know about the ship got stuck on Suez Canal, congested ports and supply chains and disrupted supply chains. And then, of course, the big elephant in the room is labor shortage. And so, Tiffany, you talked about that. So we definitely want to address that. But, there is an upcoming holiday season. And, for retailers, this is a make or break thing. And it'll be very interesting, because I'll be very interested in hearing about, first of all, how social commerce is going to change the equation here. So Bogdan, you will ask you that. And then with Barbara, returns. E-commerce means more returns. So, what does that mean for the industry? But there's a lot of exciting times for innovation in retail right now. There's a growth of e-commerce, of course, supply chain disruptions and all of that. The reduced globalization, because this big country in the East is no longer a preferred partner for many people, for many retailers. And then, of course, personalized shopping. So love to jump into the discussion. And I'd like to ask, if we were going to do this panel in February of 2020, how different would this conversation be? Tiffany, do you want to go first?
Sure. I think this conversation would be slightly different. The reality is that COVID has really just fast forwarded the retail industry and changes in the way that the consumer really interacts with retailers, right? So, one of the things that we quickly saw was that companies were adopting to things like curbside delivery and enhancing their online presence if it didn't already exist, right? People that hadn't grown accustomed to doing online shopping, whether it was retail or groceries or even going to doctors, had to rely on those services. And so the consumer has clearly shifted the way that they're interacting with their retailers. We saw a shift in what fashion and apparel was doing, how people had their socialization patterns. We started to get more intelligence from a digital perspective. As more and more shoppers were actually going online, it was giving us as retailers an ability to better understand who they were. And we also saw an interesting shift in that communities were really shifting towards supporting some of their local businesses. And I think that that's something that's been very interesting as we start to look at the dynamics between a panel in February 2020 and the one today. So.
Okay, thank you so much. No, so Fahim, I want to come to you because what are you guys doing? It's a secret elixir somehow, because Home Depot Q3 2020 23% growth versus last year, the previous year rather, Q4 2020 25% growth, Q1 2021 32.7% growth. And we're not talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. Your most recent, your earnings had $41.1 billion of revenue in one quarter. Stock 52-week high, 41% increase year to date. So tell us the secret, and what are the changes? What are the changes you have made? What are permanent? What is temporary?
Sure. I think we have to recognize that homes over the last 18 months, not 24 months, 18 months have really become not just the place where we live, it's also the place where we work. It's also the place where we study. It's also the place where we feel safe. And that dynamic really has changed with how we interact with our homes and how we would like to improve each square foot of our home to be the most pleasant place possible. And that's what we saw in our interactions with our customers over the last 18 months. Now, to support that, if you grow by tens of billions a year, it really tests each and every fabric of the corporate body, if you will. And before we talk about technology, before we talk about supply chains and all the complex stuff, the most important thing for us really has been taking care of our associates and keeping that fabric together. And if there is a secret sauce, it is just that we make sure that we invest in our associates and we take care of our associates. Because if we take care of our associates, they will take care of the customers. Recently, when we did our Voice of Associate survey, just in the tech organization that I can speak for, our associate engagement score was the highest ever. And it was at 91% engagement, which is best in class. And it's all about the values, right? It's about the Home Depot values. If you go to the Home Depot, we wear this apron and the values are written out there. And only one of them is about creating stockholder value, shareholder value. All others have something to do with creating relationships amongst associates, the community, supporting and respect for people. And really that has been the secret sauce of making it all happen and keeping it all together and delivering on the promise to our customers and our communities.
Do you think that this is going to be temporary, or you think that you now can progress at this rate even going forward?
Listen, growth rates are something that will tie into what the economy does, but the household formation is at all-time high. Millennials who maybe waited on getting into homes are now forming those homes. And the stock for new homes is really low. And so people are buying homes which are older and which need work. And we believe that household formation will continue and investment in home will continue. I mean, invariably, a lot of jobs will become flex or remote or some combination. And in that, we will have just this need to improve. And that's something that we had prepared for as we had invested in One Home Depot strategy over the past 4 years. That's something that we had contemplated. And when we think of commerce, we don't think of e-commerce and in-store commerce. We really think of interconnected commerce.
Exactly. All right, thank you so much for that. So Bogdan, I'm going to come to you next. So, there are, according to Statista, 31% of e-commerce is on mobile now, which has grown from $41 billion in 2013 to $338 billion in 2020. And there were 80 million social buyers in 2020. I mean, of course, yours is adjacent to social. So tell us a little bit about, we obviously have seen a lot of demand on using these channels because of COVID, right? And there's also pent-up demand, which is now going to continue this trend. But what is your strategy? I mean, from your perspective for your customers, how do you tell them to maintain this demand in future years?
That's a great question. So I want to start really at the top, Sid, and what that comes down to is we often will work. So we're a software as a service platform. We have customers that spend anywhere between $60,000 a year with us all the way to $6 million a year with us, right? So it really varies. There's a wide variety there. And the reason I highlight that is because we work with small brands and big brands and everything in between. And fundamentally, the thesis is the same. You have to connect with your customer wherever they connect with their family and friends, right? And for us, overwhelmingly, we believe that is text or SMS today because it is a conversational medium that will likely change in the future. But today, we believe that is where you have to be back and forth interactions, right? Where you learn about the customer's likes and preferences and then sell and engage against those, right? So you're building your CRM, you're building your customer data platform as part of that so you can better engage the customer. So really the secret sauce that a big part of our rollout strategy is implementation and onboarding. We have to train our customer and how to engage their customer, right? The end consumer in this new conversational medium. And it always ties back to having a conversation. And it's funny, I mentioned some of the brands we work with. It always starts the same way. What do I even ask them, right? How do I talk to my customer? And the answer that our customer success team always gives is as a friend, right? As someone that wants to give and understand without having an intent to sell. And often our brands want to go straight to buy, but it needs to be first, let me learn more about you, Sid. How many kids do you have? What are you interested in? What to take Fahim's example, do you have to have a home office? What's most important to you about this home office, right? And then you go from that approach down to a recommendation approach. And so what we often will help coach our customers to is how to structure these conversations, not with an intent to sell, but with an intent to understand. Right. And often that comes around the aspect of segmentation in real time. So one of our customers, last Friday was engaging 1.5 million consumers that were eligible in buying a new iPhone. Right. And it's not just a function of here's the new iPhone, go buy it. What do you use your phone for? What's most important to you? Right. And then tying value to that where they live.
Can you share some names? I mean, is it possible? I mean, if it's not confidential, can you share names and a specific use case?
Yeah. So let me think of one that I legally am allowed to without violating any NDA. So I'll go to one of our smaller brands. Fastest growing retail concept in the country right now that most people on this webinar haven't heard is a company called Buff City Soap. They're out of Dallas, Texas. They started at about 30 locations last year. They'll finish a little over 200 this year and much more past that. They'll grow 7x in the next 2 years. Extremely sticky customer base, basically handmade soaps, detergents, all these things in a store. It's a franchise concept. And we've been able to help Buff learn so much about their customer in terms of, do you have pets? What are your favorite scents? To where we're able to help them not just understand this customer better, but understand consumption patterns. How quickly is the Mukherjee household consuming what they bought versus Fahim versus Tiffany versus Barbara's households, and then tying those types of upsells and recommendations to that, to the point where we're able to drive double-digit incremental revenue increases every month for them, all by being able to cohort and segment this customer base. Before, this was a net new customer. I didn't know anything about them, and now I'm collecting what we call zero-party data. I know Sid by first name. I know how many kids he has. I know that he has a pet. I know that he's hypoallergenic or whatever, right? I'm making this up. But now I can treat him very differently than Barbara and Fahim and Tiffany, right?
Absolutely. I have three pets actually. So, but thank you for that. So, now jumping over to Barbara, so, you're dealing with an area which is considered to be not very sexy, right? I mean, nobody likes returns. No, customers don't necessarily like it. I mean, of course, retailers hate it, and there are lots of problems, right?
Yes.
Collection of the product is a problem. The transport, and eventually, how do you put it back on the shelf? Do you resell it or not? Do you liquidate it and so on, which Sid Lenawat talked about very eloquently during his presentation. So tell us a little bit about what you see, kind of new trends that are coming up in the whole reverse logistics space, and how does Spring Returns and your company try to solve that?
Sure. So a lot of new trends. Some of them are new now. We've talked about them for years. Like we all hear buy online, pick up in store, buy online, return in store, different things like that. But now with COVID and e-commerce returns and everything that's happening there, it really takes all of those things to a higher level. Retailers right now are not only facing returns and what to do with them when they come back, but also, do we want it back? That's a big question that retailers are starting to ask, is do we want the customer to send this merchandise back because it's even more expensive for us to do something with it versus just let them keep it and send them a replacement item. And one thing that our product looks at is really the relationship between returns and fraud. And so when you start thinking about things like, do we want the item back? Does that open up that retailer then for more fraud? Because now if customers are not sending this back, the bad actors can use that to get more than one, item, sell them on different marketplaces and different things like that. So it's a lot of what we're seeing with our customers is data, looking at the data to determine what they need to do, not only for sales, but that's where everybody's, of course, is thinking about sales and customer relationships, but also you have to know your customer with how they return. So that way you can identify if this is, one of your loyal customers who are making these returns, or if this is a bad actor or organized retail crime ring who is making returns to you? And then how do you handle those situations differently versus having a overall policy for everyone? You have this personalized returns policy based on knowing what that customer is. And one of the trends that we're seeing that's become a big issue, especially for e-commerce returns, is item not received fraud. And that's people saying that they never received the item, being able to kind of game the system when it comes to tracking numbers. And they can tell when the merchandise has left the warehouse, and they're able to say, oh, I never received it. They can even, modify tracking numbers sometimes. And we even have, evidence of drivers being able to drop off items, take pictures of the item that they dropped off, and then come back later, pick the item up and take it with them. And so a lot of issues, with that whole buy online, return in the store, e-commerce returns, item not received fraud, and then retailers trying to decide, do we want to even take this item back because the cost of doing something with those reverse logistics is so great. And so just so a lot of sales are happening with e-commerce is a great thing, but there's also some losses that are kind of hurting them when these sales are happening. And that's what our platform.
Absolutely. That's it's a very important role, because, to Fahim's earlier point, I mean, you got to make sure your associates are happy, but also your customers are happy, right? And to have probably one of the biggest sources of dissatisfaction on both sides of the aisle is the return process. So I think, that's very important. So let me go back to you, Bogdan. And so, during COVID, e-commerce saw 10 years of growth in 10 months, right? And, you obviously, you are very closely involved with that. And I'm hoping that you benefited a lot from that growth.
Yeah, we did.
Right. So what's that future of retail? I mean, where do you think e-commerce and, marketing by text, et cetera, is going to be in the next, say, 5 years?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite questions. So thank you. So yeah, we did. We were fortunate. Our customers trusted us last year. We ended up growing by a little over 600%, and we're trying to do a little over 500% growth this year, primarily driven by exactly what you just said, Sid. It feels like we're 10 years ahead, except infrastructure and everything else. I'm sure, Barbara, on the flip side, the logistics side is not caught up, right? And obviously we have some of the supply chain macro constraints. Where I view the future of retail is going is to, the best way I can do it is traditionally you've had right message, right time via the right channel or medium. And I'm going to take one more step further and say that traditionally the way that consumers have purchased has been very demand driven. Me as the brand, me as Home Depot has to put something in front of Bogdan that he might want to buy. And we believe that that's going to shift to a supply driven model. We understand so much about Bogdan's likes and preferences that we can now build specifically for this cohort of Bogdans. And we just say, hey, we made this thing because you told me you bought this other thing. What do you think? And I say, oh my God, of course I want that. And then at that point, you're able to transact not via a website, which is what we think we're going to displace, but in some type of conversational medium like Voxy, right? To where, and we're building that right now, we call it reply to buy, to where I now get the text, yes, of course I want that, and it's shipped directly to my home. So I'm no longer having to go to a website and search for things. It's a supply-driven model. The Home Depot knows that I bought a ceiling fan 2 days ago, and they should recommend A, B, and C based off those things. And I love this ceiling fan, and it ties together and it gets to my house the next day, right?
Awesome. Yeah, no, you know what? I want to go to Fahim, and because this is relevant to exactly what he probably does every day, right? So I want to ask you, what is your thought in terms of e-commerce, growth of e-commerce for a traditional brick and mortar company like yours, like Home Depot? And the other question I'll also ask related to this is probably a topic you guys have been discussing in your boardroom for a long time, which is, what does the store of the future look like, right?
So let's think about us as a traditional company, which also is now the 5th largest e-commerce provider in North America. Mm-hmm. And really, as I was mentioning earlier, when we look at e-commerce, we really look at it as interconnected sales. Be it our website, and I'm really intrigued by the SMS example, or be it our app, they've really become the front door to our stores. A majority of our customer buying journeys, they start in app, they start on the website. And then even after they buy and transact on the app or the e-commerce site, 60% of those purchases are actually picked, or more than 60% are either picked up from store or delivered from store. And so the store becomes really a continuum from our distribution centers, where parcels come from, so distribution centers, where we actually would send installation to you, for instance, appliances. But a significant part of our appliance sales actually are now transacted online. And I never thought I would buy a refrigerator without touching it, opening it up, jumping in there. Now people click on it, they know what to get, and we provide the right recommendations, which is exactly that. It's not just what one thing that you bought, but what else can we help you buy itself? What will you need? What else you may need? What are the recommendations?
You know, in a store, what are the things that you think you'll see in the next 5 years?
We will continue to see a lot more evolution and integration between what's available in the store and how the apps are utilized to create that view of options in the endless aisle and customization. As we are bringing more and more personalization to the apps, for instance, things like when we search, if we know that as a pro customer, you're a plumber versus an electrician, we'll show you pliers, for instance, which are relevant to a plumber versus an electrician.
Right.
Now we are offering you value add, and that's why you will interact in finding the appropriate product for the appropriate project and the appropriate information.
I mean, you know what? I'm very impressed with the way Home Depot not just does this, but even years ago, it was doing these workshops, right? So you don't go to a store, to a Home Depot store just to buy the tools. You also go there, learn how to use it. So very creditable. So Tiffany, you know, I want to ask you the same question about the e-commerce growth, right? I mean, 10 times in 10 years, or 10 years in 10 months, sorry. And the other thing I want to do though is also ask for your perspective on the labor shortages, because labor shortages are such a big deal right now, especially because the nature of retail is changing, right? I mean, from everything that Bogdan and Fahim talked about, you know, the nature of the associate is getting more and more e-commerce, distribution, delivery. So please provide your perspective on that.
Sure. So first of all, just in terms of, you know, how fast everything has moved, the one thing that I do want to point out, and we should all realize, is that there is actually still an interest in shopping in a store, and that interest is coming back, right? So in a recent survey that we did, more than half of the people and over 70% of the Gen Z consumers said that they were planning on doing most of their holiday shopping in store this season. Whereas, you know, maybe surprisingly, 54% of the baby boomers anticipate doing their shopping online. So we're starting to see a shift in how we think about it. But, you know, overall, 25% of the consumers and 42% of our young millennials said that if they had experiences like cooking classes or the carol singers or children play areas, that would actually entice them to shop in the store more. So, you know, Sid and Fahim, when we were talking about what does the future of the store look like, one of the things that we really see the demand for consumers driving is more experience driven. And, you know, Bogdan, the notion of I understand the customer better so that I can create the right place to actually buy and the right product, we're going to start to see those experience-led interactions in your traditional brick and mortar stores. In terms of the labor shortage, right? One of the things that we're finding is really interesting is the retail workforce is changing. 50% of today's workforce has actually said that they would take a 15% pay cut if they were working for a company that had an inspiring purpose. So it's back to, again, you know, this notion of what is the brand, what is, you know, why do we care about our people is pretty important. We also found that 40% of retail executives think that most of their workforce will actually change because of the technology advances. And so when you look at that, you say, well, gosh, how do I then impact and train these individuals? And so one of the ways that we've found an employee experience to be enhanced is to start thinking about how do you innovate at work? A great example was a restaurant actually made some changes to back operations to improve the way that sandwiches were made and the actual worker experience. And that actually enhanced the productivity of the restaurant, but also improved the worker experience and allowed them to better retain their employees and attract talent as well. So we're really seeing things like, what is the future of the work? How do we get the work done? Where is it done? All those types of things are part of the process that the retailers are now going through.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. So Barbara, I'll come to you next and tell me a little bit about how do you think the whole reverse logistics process, the return process is going to evolve in the next, say, 5 years?
Well, I think the biggest thing is what I mentioned before, is returns, reverse logistics will be more personal. It's not going to be this broad policy that, everybody has the same policy. We all are treated the same way. It's going to be personalized returns, just like we're knowing our customer with how they sell and what they buy. We will know our customers with how they return and how we can, either exchange items with them or upsell to them. Applications really like what we saw with Hammock, where retailers are not stuffing all this return merchandise, which sometimes is bricks that are coming back to them and not really the merchandise at all. It's not coming to these warehouses and just overloading warehouses. That will be sold en route, sold to maybe third-party, retailers. So it's going to be different ways that they handle this merchandise coming back, besides storing it, trying to sell it, or send it back to the vendor. And then the data with how they determine, whether returns are valid or fraudulent. There's been a lot of advances, especially with AI technology, and data analytics, being able to determine, if we should take this item back or not. There's always been kind of this frictionless approach to where you don't really want to anger a customer, especially in store. Just take it back and we'll do something with it. And I think with analytics and AI, retailers are becoming, a lot smarter, and they're able to say, we're not going to take this back. This is a fraudulent return. They've been able to use technology to detect organized retail crime rings that are hitting their stores. And so we're going to see that there's going to be some empowerment with returns and data to help them determine what to take back and what not to take back.
Awesome. So thank you for that. I mean, that was very insightful. So so in the interest of time, I'm going to ask you 2 or 3 questions, and I'd like for everybody to limit their answer to 30 seconds. Okay. So one of them is, my first question is going to be, there has been fabulous increase in retail sales in 2021. It was 15% year on year, believe it or not, till the end of August, right? However, not everybody has benefited equally. So I'll ask you, in your context, maybe it is for your firm, what are you doing as a consultant? What are you advising? And if you're a technology founder, how is your technology kind of making that more impactful for your customers? So, Fahim, you want to go first?
Sure. What we've also seen is engagement from a new set of customers. A lot of our business is done with the pros. A lot of our business is done with the DIY. And what we have seen now is engagement with the millennial DIY customers. And in that, what we have done is also, besides just selling, something about the Home Depot, when you go to the Home Depot physically, the people there are not selling to you. They are there to advise you and help you. We are bringing the same into our websites and in our apps.
Awesome. So
we're bringing more advisory in there.
That's great insight. Okay, Bogdan.
Yeah, so we're very values driven as well. We have 5 core values. And the most important one that I always push on our team is do with empathy. So we have customers in retail, we have customers in restaurant that have been dramatically impacted by the labor shortages. And what I would argue and what I would recommend to firms that are struggling, I think that was the original prompt, was as you think about your customer experience, what can data, and then to Tiffany's point, what can automation do to help improve it, right? So that exact point, Tiffany, I'll call out one last brand, and I'm going a little over. I go to Chipotle way too often. And what you've seen during COVID is they have their app and they have a secondary line now for online orders. So it doesn't impact the in-store experience, and they can staff it with less people than, if you remember, even 6 months ago, there was the ticket that was putting out, and it was all kinds of friction and bottlenecks. So can you deploy automation to remove friction?
Thank you. Tiffany.
Sure. So what we're seeing are like sort of 5 big imperatives for retailers in this post-pandemic era is to reset digital, right? So think about the customer experience in your integrated channels. We think that there's a need to reset fulfillment. So leverage predictive analytics, the network design, the home delivery, partner with both traditional and non-traditional partners. There's a desire to reset sourcing, thinking about where you can focus on sustainability and transparency and just value expansion. A reset on talent. So how do you enable digital and data fluent and diverse workforces and cultures? And there's a reset on data. How do you treat it as a strategic asset and use it to drive decision-making at speed and scale? So those are really our 5 kind of key imperatives that we're telling retailers they should focus on.
So that's really so concise. So digital, predictive analytics, sourcing, talent, and data.
Yep.
Very good. And then Barbara?
Yeah, and Tiffany hit the nail on the head with her last point, which was the data. And so what we're telling retailers, and really we're working with those loss prevention, asset protection, profit protection teams. And what we're saying is that these teams are really growing in a lot of retail brands that we're talking to. They're starting to bring more people into these roles because of what they're seeing with especially the e-commerce returns and some of the fraud there. And so what we're telling them is that data is king. And a lot of these teams, have data that they have access to, but it's disparate data in all kinds of different places. We're helping them be able to bring this data in, see the relationships between the data, and use that data to empower them with how they're handling their reverse logistics from what to put on the shelf based on what's disappearing from the shelf, and then especially with different types of fraud that are happening. So use that data, be able to look at it across the board, and bring it out of these silos into something where they can make actionable decisions based on the data that they're seeing. So that's what we're encouraging.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So next question, again, 30 seconds, please. Tell me a little bit about what is the prediction? What will be the future of retail in 2025, in 2035? I'd like to include a couple of topics that have been coming in the question. So one is, please include a sentence on what's going to happen to the future of malls. There's another question about, what does our robots going to take over retail? So, so Barbara, go first.
Yeah, there you go. I was hoping you would let me go first on this one. So I do believe one thing, we've seen just looking at some of the trends with RIS News, NRF, robotics in retail is a thing. We're seeing retailers starting to use robots in their warehouses for, just stocking and different things like that. We're also really excited about using retailers in store for like curbside delivery and things like that. And so to me, the robots are definitely coming. But I love what Tiffany talked about with experience retail. And I'm seeing that with some of the malls here in Georgia, is that a lot of these big locations are being used to have an experience before you buy. Come in and try and then buy. And so that's what I'm predicting.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Tiffany.
I'm seeing all sorts of like immersive retails or immersive realities in retail, right? So imagine a world where maybe I do go to a store, but I'm not actually buying goods. I'm being measured for something to have a very personalized, customized outfit for me. And we can do that with like all sorts of, exciting technology that doesn't exist today. So I'm seeing that change, and I'm seeing really experiences that are enabled by the 5G, the Internet of Things, virtual reality.
Got it. Thank you so much. Bogdan?
Yeah, so it's funny. I think automation, AI, all of this is going to enhance an experience, but I don't think you ever remove humans from that experience. I personally don't want to live in a world, and I think a lot of the folks that are attending this panel do, where everything is done through some bot. I think that they should give humans superpowers to be better, stronger, faster. But I think that is the world that we will be living in. It's still going to be human to human and connection. And going back to what I think Tiffany and Fahim and Barbara said, it's going to be experiential. I want to go in and have a great experience that's memorable. Otherwise, I could go online and have it delivered.
And you want it idiot-free, so that texting also is
that's right. Frictionless.
Frictionless.
Right.
Fahim, you're up. Fahim, what do you think?
I am very excited about the prospects for personalization in the near future. So if we look at any of those experiences, be it you walking in the store, be it guided to the website, us knowing you and knowing your preferences and knowing where you are in the buying journey, I think will be important and helpful. I think as we look much further out in the future, product for one will become a thing. And if I need something printed out, it will be printed out for me and I can come and install it.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. So final question. One thing that I'd request our panelists to please put your contact information to the extent that you feel comfortable sharing it in the chat. So people, if they want to contact you afterwards, social media is fine, or if you, whatever you feel comfortable sharing. And any final parting thoughts for our audience today? And Tiffany, do you want to be first?
I just think it's important for us to realize that retail is booming, and you know the experience and how and where people are buying is what's changing. But there is a way to be successful if you really think about leveraging the power of data and digital and that omnipresence experience. So,
thank you, Bogdan.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say fundamentally that topic that I said, I agree. It's never been a better time to be in retail if you start with the end in mind, which is do with empathy, right? Putting yourself in the customer's shoes and building back from that is the ultimate key to build a frictionless world. And, you know, I often think about as a kid watching Back to the Future, that's the world we're about to be living in, right? We're finally there, not quite flying cars yet, but a world like that, right? Where it is truly personalized and on demand. And I'm really excited to be part of helping drive a little bit of that change, and hopefully everybody else is as well.
Thank you. Fahim?
We also have a great opportunity to really further diversity, inclusion, and equity initiatives, and really providing the opportunity from front of the store to the boardroom, meaning we can start indeed from the front of the board of the store. And we have today executives like Anne-Marie Campbell, who runs our global operations and all our stores, who started at the front of the store and now is in the EVP. And I think that's the sort of things that I look forward to in retail.
Thank you so much, Barbara.
Yeah, and the last thing I want to add with is just local or hyper local retail as well. I think that's been a huge benefit. Being able to buy, you know, diverse retailers is also huge right now. People are supporting, you know, different types of businesses. And so I think that's also something to look forward to, is this hyper local and supporting businesses because you believe in either them or what they're doing. And so I think that's another exciting part about retail that we can't forget, is the small hyper local retailers as well.
Awesome. Well, I mean, what a fabulous panel. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. And I'll pass it back now to Erin and Kat to finish it up.
Yes, thank you guys so much for that discussion. That was definitely really interesting. And I think I agree that experiential retail is definitely the future, especially thinking about my own sort of retail experience. So I appreciate you guys all for sharing your thoughts, and to the audience for participating and listening to this wonderful panel. Don't hesitate to reach out to us for any questions. And I think the panelists dropped some of their contact info into the chat. And I would like to thank our presenting sponsor, Accenture, one more time, and Tiffany, of course, for being here today. And I hope everyone has a wonderful afternoon.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Everyone.